Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we are returning to Rule the Waves 3, our Let's Play series playing as Italy in an 1890 start. We've just come out of a war with France and Austria-Hungary. The war didn't go very well. We actually were, I feel like we were winning, but we had a revolution. So we managed during the war to lose Angola, which we had taken from Portugal. But we launched amphibious invasions that took both Tunisia and Algeria, and then we had kind of narrowed the front on victory points so that we were slightly ahead. But then our government collapsed, our population rose up, and we were forced to sue for peace. In that peace treaty, the Italians gave back both Tunisia and Algeria to the French, and as a result, our war was long, bloody, and pointless. I don't know if we gave further reparations. I know we gave them a couple ships. I don't know what else, like if we're giving them part of our economy or whatever. But in any event, things didn't go great. So we've spent the last year or so since the war ended finishing construction on a bunch of ships that were under construction at the end of the war. And currently we're sitting with 5 battleships, a reasonable, I think 7 or so armored cruisers, almost all of them of which are of our most modern type, and then a pretty decent chunk of Cushion class light cruisers, which again are our most modern type. Now we are in January of 1898 and our government is saying we must build destroyers and we must build 13 of them. We have some money set aside. We've got 1.5 million in the surplus per month and we've got about 4 million in the bank. So we're going to go ahead and design a ship. Huh. Guess we won't do that quite yet. One second. Well, that was obviously a bug of some kind. Let's see if we can try and design a ship now. I just reloaded the save. Yay, there we can do that. All right, so we are going to try and design a destroyer. We're going to do an auto design. The game is going to give us a ship of 300 tons. The ship has cramped accommodations. It's overweight. Design is not legal. It's not legal because it's so heavily overweight. So it's 300 tons. It's moving at 26 knots. She has one gun, a 3-inch gun forward, nothing in the rear. It has 2 swivel line, center line torpedo tubes. So not even a lot of torpedoes. It does appear to have secondary guns of 2-inch caliber for them. 2 on port, 2 on wing. Okay. And no real armor to speak of. 1 fire control. So where can we save weight? I think the only place we can save weight is either speed or range. I don't want to surrender range for a ship of this era, or speed for a ship of this era. 26 knots is already slower than I would like. So we will go with short ranged. I mean, they'll probably only be operating in the Mediterranean. We don't really have a global empire yet. So they should always be pretty close to port. So if we go ahead and we shorten the range, we get the weight back under control. We have a heavy or crowded center line. It didn't say that when we had medium range, right? Huh. What if I just slow the speed down? Oh, so I get the weight back under control. It still says it. So I guess we'll do short range, coal, triple expansion engines. We don't have turbines yet. You know, the alternative is we go for speed over reliability. Can we get to medium on that? No. But speed over reliability for engines would actually allow me to crank the speed up to 27 knots. They may be more likely to break down, but these guys are just torpedo death machines anyway, right? What about normal accommodation? Well, it still has the rate of fire penalty. So let's, I guess, keep it cramped. Keep it cramped. 64 crew members, 4 secondary. I don't know that we need 4 2-inch guns. That seems like a lot of guns for limited value here. What if we remove them? and just put one more of the 3 inchers aft. So I have 1 fore, 1 aft, 3-inch guns. It looks like it's off the screen there. That doesn't look right. Is that better? Cramped accommodations. We'll say 26 knots. Too many centerline turret mounts. Okay. What if we don't make him centerline then? What if we just put... What if we do the port forward and starboard? The graphic here is terribly off. Aft, starboard, and port. 2-inch guns instead of 3. 190 shell. Well, no, 200 shells. It's a 3-inch gun, so or 2-inch gun, so it's not gonna. It needs more ammo. Okay, we get rid of those secondary guns. Ship is overgunned. Rate of fire and accuracy will be negatively impacted. Really? Overgunned, huh? All right. Well, Too many centerline mounts. I don't understand it. I've got 2 torpedo mounts on centerlines. We could do this actually. What if we, instead of the centerline swivel mounts, yeah, I know. We'll do port broadside and starboard broadside swivel mount. And then, is there an aft swivel mount? We've got the weight. Port, starboard, broadside, swivel mount. So we'll do 4 torpedo tubes, 1 on each side. Now it's seriously overweight. Okay. We can drop the guns to 2 inchers, I think. Doesn't really get us that. It doesn't get us close enough, I don't think. What if instead of 2 rear mounts like that, we keep the 2 sort of broadside swivels in the front, and then we just add 1 aft center line? Can we do that? Where the hell is that? That is not where I want it. There we go. Cramped accommodation, short range, not legal. It's seriously overweight. Okay. So we can do a broadside of 1 torpedo, basically, right? Oh, wait, no, I've still got 4 here. We'll get rid of the P. That saves quite a bit of weight. Crowded centerline impacts rate of fire by 20. That's fine. Guns are 3 inchers, which I want to try and keep. Okay. We're still 3 tons overweight. Got that by going to 25 knots. I just worry at 25 knots we won't have the closing speed to do what we need to do. So maybe just the 2 torpedo tubes, I guess, is okay. It gets rid of the cramped complaint. Also, in theory, lets me crank the speed up to 27 knots. Or could we do 25 in normal? We could. Or 26 knots in normal accommodations. But we'll keep it cramped. I mean, 1 or 2 hits will probably sink it anyway. So we'll keep it cramped for 27 knots. All right, so I think this is our design. After a lot of finagling back and forth, we've got 2 3-inch guns of quality 1 fore, 1 aft. Ignore this graphic, it's weird. We've got 27 knots with speed, so unreliable engines. I'm going to move where those torpedo swivel mounts are. They just bother me. So let's do starboard and port. Or port. There we go. So these are amidships now. So amidships, we've got 1 torpedo tube on each side of the destroyer. That seems problematic. A submerged torpedo tube in the front would be very heavy. I really just wish we had 1 more torpedo. I just don't, they're only 300-ton destroyers, so I can't really do much with it. Okay. So this will be a very basic destroyer with 2 torpedoes, 1 for each broadside, 2 guns, 1 fore, 1 aft, max speed of 27 knots. If we do a low freeboard, would we save enough weight to do another torpedo tube? Not really. We could cut speed to 26 and then have 3 torpedoes. Would that be worth it? It's still big enough. I don't. All right. Anyway, so that's going to do it. 27 knots. Okay, there we go. 27 knots, normal accommodations, engine priority is speed, triple expansion engines, 1 torpedo tube on each side of the ship, 2 guns, 1 fore, 1 aft. I suppose if we drop the aft gun, we just really make it a torpedo boat. We could possibly add another. Okay, well, we're going to make it a low freeboard ship. We're going to drop speed to 26 knots. It will be not very effective in rough weather, which is maybe not great. But in good weather, this ship could do some damage. A 2 broadside torpedo with 3 total on the ship, 1 gun forward, and yeah, no secondary guns. This is really just a torpedo boat, literally in every sense of the word. If we did change to cramped accommodations, we could get that speed back up to 27 knots. Could we get it to normal freeboard? We could. Okay, so we'll do that. 1 gun forward, 27 knots, cramped accommodation, 3 torpedo tubes. So it'll work better in bad seas. So yeah, there you go. In terms of the class name, sorry for spending 10 minutes of hemming and hawing. In terms of the class name, we're going to call it the Mandate class because we were mandated to build it. And save and finish. It'll cost $107 to do a design study, which is fine. We'll go ahead and move forward to the next month. One of our armored cruisers finishes working up. Seems the Commander Ciano of the light cruiser Terrasco and Commander Forvano have fought a duel. Bury the whole affair. Make sure everybody knows duels are forbidden. Have them both court-martialed. Well, the first officer is bad but aggressive, and the second officer is average, so have them both court-martialed. I don't care if I lose you. Neither one of you is particularly good. I mean, you know. All right, we'll go to the screen for the mandate class. We have to build at least 13 of the things. So we'll build 4 up front, which we can afford just barely. Or 12 up front. They'll take 8 months. And we will also build an additional batch. Monthly build is 118, which actually still keeps us in the black, but we're going to build 2. Oops. So we're building a total of 14 destroyers for the fleet. So 14 destroyers will give us we'll be behind everybody else's destroyer counts, but it's something I can work with. We can always increase that size too. But for the moment, we don't have large enough destroyer tonnage, so I don't want too many of the things. And then at some point, I'm going to need to build new cruiser and battleship designs because they're largely out of date. I wonder if we can open the Palistro class. Does it make sense to replace machinery here? We've got 29 tons available of space. If we do replace machinery, we gain up to 143 tons to play with, which is still not enough to increase the speed to even 21 knots. So it doesn't really do me any good. I also don't have new fire control tech, so it doesn't really do any good there. So like, unless I can get this speed up, which once we have turbines, maybe that would, you know, if we could replace the engines and upgrade them to turbines, then we could get a knot more out of them. The problem is, at least from a realistic perspective, you're not gonna rip the triple expansion engines out and replace them with turbines. That is, to take the engines out of a ship of this era basically requires disassembling the ship in a way that would not be cost effective. So we'll leave the Palistro class out there. Probably design a new armored cruiser class before long. Are we already building our dockyards? Yeah, we are. We're already expanding our dockyards. So we'll probably wait to build another battleship design till that's done. We've got at least 9 months on these destroyers. Can I save any time if I accelerate construction? That's one gripe I have with this game, is that accelerating construction makes such a minor difference in the actual construction times. Like, you can't, if you could save 3 or 4 months on a year or on a 2-year design, then that might make sense. But like, you can save 1 month per year pretty much. And it's just not, it doesn't really move the needle, in my opinion, in any kind of meaningful way. All right, we've got our intel set to medium for everybody, which we could bring this down a bit. It does increase tensions, and it costs a little bit of money. Let's reduce it on Japan. I don't particularly want to go to war with them. Not yet, anyway. And, yeah, we are building some ships. Okay. We got some damage control stuff. Explosive shells are still low priority. Like, guns are a high priority. It doesn't seem like we're making any progress there. All right, one of the cruisers is run aground on the shore of a minor nation while performing an illicit intelligence operation. They threaten to impound the ship. Demand they release it and send a strong squadron to underline the point. Yes, I can't afford to give up a cruiser. I wish I knew which cruiser it was, but screw that. Tensions go up with everybody but Japan, which is actually good because it it doesn't make a war actually any more likely. Not really. The review of the destroyer building program is coming up next month. We should have nothing to worry about. New docks are completed. So we've expanded the dockyards to 18,000 tons. We are now to a budget of 1.2 million. We'll wait for the world economy has recovered after the crisis. You're receiving much praise for building the required amount of destroyers. It's a terrible French design, I think. All right, so our budget goes up to 1.3 million. People are happy that I'm building those destroyers. The build requirements are gone. So in theory, I could scrap them and no one would care. That seems a little silly. Does it make sense if I go to the THG and I open the design? 13,200 tons. Yeah, I can't really make them any faster. What if I design a new ship from scratch? Let's do a pre-Dreadnought battleship. Auto design. They'd use 12-inch guns again. They'd increase the displacement to 15,700 tons. Speed is still 18 knots. I don't see the point of that. Like, I know 18 knots is not slow for a battleship in the pre-Dreadnought era, but can we go the Italian way and sacrifice armor for speed? $14 6-inch guns. We could drop them to 5-inch guns. Put them in single turrets. I don't think I have the training gear for 2-inch for double turrets. I don't even have the single turrets though either. So let's actually back out of here. Go back in, auto design again, and see what it does. So it'll give me single gun turrets? No. Okay. Can we do 10 inches of armor? 2.5 of deck, 2 of deck, 10 of conning, 10 of turrets. Okay. Increase it to 15.5 maybe. And then our secondary guns have 8-inch calibers. That's pretty damn heavy. And double turrets. I don't even think I have the tech for that. I do have the tech. Huh. Maybe. We can build up to 18,000 tons. So if we go to the max. Huh. Okay, well, that's not what I was expecting. So the game will allow me to do this. It'll be a 12-inch gun battleship with 6 double turrets for our secondary guns of 8 inches. We can make 20 knots, which is, I think, a reasonable speed for a battleship of this era. A 10-inch belt, which I think is decent, I think. Upper and extended belts are only 3 inches, which is a little low. Deck armor is only 2. Could I bounce it to 2.5? I could. So we could do turret top and deck at 2.5. That's probably overkill, but I'm thinking from a shrapnel point of view. The deck extended's a little light. Belt coverage is normal. Freeboard long range doesn't need to be long range. We'll do medium. We'll save some weight there. Accommodations are normal. She has 2 torpedo tubes submerged. Man, and we've got 3-inch guns, 16 of them in casemates. This design, something is wrong here. Like, why is this so good? I guess 18,000 tons is a lot. I could even make it 22 knots. That starts becoming like World War I era fast battleship-esque very quickly. Alternatively, I could drop the tonnage. How much? 100 tons drops it 2. So how much could I drop the weight and keep the weight okay? So we could drop it by 1,400 tons almost. That would cut the cost by 43 times 32. 43 per month. And then over 32 months. Actually, sorry, I can't do math. That's 33 per month times 32 months. So it'd be about 1,000 or roughly about 1 million. But it wouldn't save me enough to allow me to build more of them. We actually have the largest dockyards in the world. That's interesting. So I'm kind of tempted to just go speed. Do 22 knots or something. Maybe 21 knots and then up the armor, the belt to 12 inches. Conning and turrets jump up a bit too. Let's do a belt of 11. Conning tower of 11. Turrets of 10. Secondary guns. Because they're bigger guns, I think having a little bit more armor on those turrets is important. So we'll say 5. Could drop the speed to 20 knots. What if we go to normal engines? Yeah, I want to do that. Get a little bit more reliable. So 20 knots seems to be the sweet spot. We could even add some more 3-inch casemates. Have 20 of them. All right, we haven't developed double turrets more than 8 inches, so it's got to stay at 8. Okay, so here's where we're going to land on this class. We're going to go with the speed of 20 knots, so it's an increase in the battle line by 2 knots. Belt armor of 11.5 inches. Deck armor of 2.5. Conning tower of 11. Turrets of 10. Secondary turrets of 5.5. Primary battery of 4 12-inch guns in 2 2-gun turrets, 1 fore, 1 aft. Wing turrets with secondary guns of 8 inches, double turrets on those wings, so that we've got 3 on each broadside firing 8-inch shells, which seem pretty heavy to me for this era. 85 rounds per gun on the main guns, 130 guns on the secondaries, and then we've got tertiary guns of 3-inch quality 1s with 20 in casemates. We could even do turrets. We'll stick with casemates. I'm assuming it doesn't look like there's a difference. What is it? What turret's not researched? I'm assuming, well, I don't know. I feel like casemates, you get the benefit of the belt armor to help protect them. I'd be worried about flash fires on that many 3-inch guns. But yeah, let's save this class. We'll call it the Roma class. It's going to cost half of our budget to research over 3 months. But we'll get that back with our surplus. And I think we'll lay down 4 of the things as our sort of long-term strategy. We're going to move the Kaio into the mothballs while we construct it. And then the THG will become kind of the second line of battleships. I suppose we could keep one of the Kaios to round out the second battle squadron so that they both have 4 battleships. Or we could go to 2 battleship squadrons. I don't know. We'll have to figure out how we want to make that battle line. But I do like the idea of building 4. Maybe 2 at a time. I don't know. We'll see. All right. So let's go ahead and move forward 1 month. Actually, we're just going to move forward until we get the battleship ready. We're due to hold a speech at the annual gathering of the Naval League. What will be my speech? The seas should be kept peaceful for prosperity for all nations at a lower tensions, prestige, and budget. We're prepared to safeguard the interest of our Navy, or nation, against any threats that may arise. The freedom of the seas is threatened by the imperialistic ambitions of... ? We have bad relations with everybody. I feel like given what happened with France, we'd probably call France out as being our primary rival. So that's what we're going to do. Because we probably have sort of a revenge mindset where we want to get revenge against the French for the embarrassing defeat that we suffered. As long as we don't end up at war with everybody else in the meantime, right? All right. Let's lower intel efforts against the other countries that we have higher tensions against. So against Austria, Great Britain, and Japan. It doesn't seem like we have any real benefit from intelligence so far. Scientists report they're working on the problems of destroyers up to 400 tons. They have not succeeded yet. And the Roma class is ready for construction. So go to the build screen. They're going to take almost 3 years to build at 2 million per turn. We can do 1 without going into the red. We're going to build 2 initially. So these 2 will be laid down. Meanwhile, our destroyers will be done soon. 2 to 3 months. We've got enough money in the bank for 3 months of construction before we have to move anything, which hopefully by the time the destroyers come online, that'll help even the budget out a bit. Also, these light cruisers will be coming online soon. France and Japan have signed an alliance. Well, that's not great. Another round of fighting has broken out in a Balkan nation. This is due to the meddling of France. You want to go to war with France again? I mean, tensions are going to go up no matter what. I'd rather blame one country. So we're going to fight Britain, or we're going to fight both France and Japan simultaneously. The good news is Japan doesn't share any borders with us or any regions. So I'm assuming the amount of ships they will send to the Atlantic or Mediterranean is limited. But they have, well, they only have 6 battleships. I thought they had like 20 before, but they do have a lot of armored cruisers they could deploy. In any event, looks like we're steadily marching towards war. 12 destroyers are commissioned into the Navy. Torpedo aiming system. So that would have been nice to have. Meanwhile, with those ships completing, our budget situation gets much better. These 2 battleships are underway. I did say I was going to mothball the Kaios. All right, this seems like as good of a spot as any to wrap it up here. So we have designed a new class of battleships. We are building those. We're trying to modernize our fleet, but it doesn't feel like we have enough money to do that. And so it feels like a large percentage of our fleet is gradually becoming more and more obsolete. With that being said, we are also marching toward war. Perhaps, I guess we'll see in our next episode what happens with that. But that's going to do it for today. So I hope you guys did enjoy yet another episode of Rule the Waves 3. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.